Hey friends, what's going on there? This is David Potts with Song Notes, and I have a sort of tip and technique video for you today where I want to talk about this common challenge you might face of playing a song that uses the chord of D but has a modification of that chord where you're putting your pinky down on either the third string or the fourth string. Okay, this is something that I've experienced in a couple songs I've learned recently, right? We have Norwegian Wood by the Beatles. We also have Rocky Mountain High by John Denver. We also have Feathered Indians by Tyler Childers. And even in Hotel California, there's one crucial measure where you want to put a note down on that fourth fret on a D major chord. So all these have that similar challenge in common, which is that you have to play D and put that finger down, right? But this is not something that comes easy at all to a lot of guitarists, I'm sure. I'm speaking from my own experience here. I remember the first songs I learned that required this were very, they were vexing to me as far as how do I take this D chord and like put my pinky down? It just doesn't work. So I want to talk about this sort of challenge overall and talk about some ways to approach practicing it, okay? Because you might run into a song you really want to play, but it has this sort of, this demand of you, and it might be impossible at first. But I'm telling you, there are ways to learn this, or ways to get good at it. And I'm going to show you a few tips I've learned along the way. So let's get right to it. And remember, check out the link in the description for the link on the website I have, playsongnotes.com, with the tabs that will accompany this lesson. So it will be a helpful resource if you really want to get over this hump, okay? Okay, so first up, let's zoom in and look at these chords one more time. So basically, a regular D chord, obviously, is open, second, third, second. Now, this is one common thing you'll have to do, is take that D and then put your pinky on the fourth fret of the third string. Okay, I'm going to explain sort of ways to get good at this, but this is one thing you'll often ask to do. And the other one is putting your same pinky on the fourth fret of the fourth string. Okay, so let's talk about ways to sort of think about playing this. The first piece of advice I have is to basically think of your sort of left hand that's putting in your D shape right here. You really have to get loose and sort of lose some of the rigidness that you might sort of instinctively have, right? Because this D one is pushing, your fingers are pushing right in the fretboard. It's a real like source of just stability and strength, right? But the problem is if you're sort of putting too much force into these fingers, what can happen is it leaves the rest of your hand a bit like handcuffed and it's not able to move as fluidly. So I like this sort of analogy of an oak tree versus a willow or a reed tree, basically, right? Oak tree is strong and rooted and does not bend, and the wind will not move it, right? And in some cases that can be great. If you're trying to tie a tire swing to a tree, an oak tree is a good one, right? Really strong roots and strong branches. But the weakness of this is that it's really rigid, okay? Whereas the willow or the reed or whatever the sort of common example is, it's a bit more fluid, right? So I kind of think of that as like you want to really let your hand be almost, think of it like water and keep those fingertips on that D position, but get used to sort of moving your hand around. And I bring that up because what I find, and this is the second tip, when playing these notes, instead of sort of having your left hand like this, basically think of it like kind of almost like you're putting this fleshy part of under your pinky right along the wood of the guitar, okay? But put your index, middle, and ring fingers in the D shape, and then that makes getting this pinky here a lot easier. And it might feel goofy at first. I'm sort of exaggerating this position now. But it is helpful to do when sort of practicing to get a feel for, this is kind of what it feels like when you want to be thinking about playing those notes, as opposed to this, right? Because that just doesn't work, right? Okay, so that's the sort of the second one, is keeping your fingers, your hand, really nice and fluid, right? Like the reed or the willow instead of the strong oak tree. Okay, the next tip I have is to use a capo. And the reason why a capo is helpful is because basically it will make the challenge of putting your pinky down on one of these strings, it makes the frets less wide as you get up the guitar. So if we were to put a capo on the 5th fret, look at the sort of size of these frets compared to the frets up here. Now it's not drastically different, but it's different enough where it makes it a lot easier on your pinky. So basically up here, basically everything is sort of less distance for your fingers to travel, because your fingers are staying the same size, but the frets are getting smaller, so it's actually easier to play. So basically, okay, so that's the other one, is to use a capo. Okay, the next piece of advice I would have is basically when you're taking the song that requires this, do not jump right into the song every time you pick up your guitar. Okay. And this is something the last couple of weeks, as I've learned these songs, I've had to sort of remind myself of this, which is basically to warm up, is to warm these fingers up. So instead of going right into the riff, I'll just, get my hand in that comfortable D shape, move it along my fleshy part of my hand along the fretboard, and then just basically walk around the house and go between two shapes, regular D and then this one. Or maybe I'll go between the regular D and this shape. Just sort of get lost in not thinking about it, right? Pay attention to something else. Just get your pinky used to doing that. Then maybe dance between the two shapes. And I'm sort of using whatever strum I really want to do. It doesn't really matter. So that's another thing you can do. And then finally, what I would recommend is to sort of create, follow this little riff or come up with little exercises that are playing with these notes in a way that's not too demanding. You're not jumping into the full riff for Norwegian Wood or Rocky Mountain High, but you're sort of doing something like this. So basically what I'm doing there is playing the D, and then I'm adding that B note, okay? And then going to that F sharp note and then taking it off, right? So putting the B on, taking it off, putting the F sharp on, taking it off, going back to the F sharp, and then going to an A, okay? And what this is doing is it's getting me out of the D major position. So I'm basically going from a D to an A, to a D, to an A, to a D. And those are chords that are in the, they're very complementary. But what you can do is sort of take these sort of melodic riffs. So you take that riff and you take those chord progressions and you combine them and you get this. And simplify that if you need to, right? Add more craziness and advancedness to it if you want to spice it up. But basically, again, find something that's comfortable but pushing you a little bit, okay? And that's really the key, is you don't want to drastically just blow beyond your comfort level, because then that's going to make everything hard. You're not going to be warmed up yet. It's going to be possibly painful. And it's really, can be counterproductive, right? But again, you just spend a couple minutes doing this stuff, and then you go back to those songs that are giving you trouble, right? The Norwegian Wood. Find you're in good shape to rock it, okay? Now, there's one final tip I'll have for this. If the D major shape is just impossible for you to get your pinky to any of these notes, one thing you can do, and this is tricky in a different way, but is to basically bar the second fret, the second fret of the first, second, and third string, put your middle finger down on the third fret, and then this opens up your ring finger here to do these notes. So only work sometimes. Other times, the song will require other sort of finger movements that will make that sort of barring approach not really practical, but it is one helpful to have in your bag of tricks. So with that said, y'all, I wanted to leave you guys with these series of tips here. Again, some songs you learn are going to require you to play the D major chord with these sort of notes on the sort of bassier end, and it can be tricky. But again, use what I taught you here, and I think you will be in good shape. So this has been David Potts. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like it, please subscribe. And remember, at playsongnotes.com, you can find the tabs that accompany this video waiting for you. But remember, I want you to pick up your guitar and play. If you have any other questions about technical challenges that you're having trouble sort of mastering, let me know, and maybe I'll make a video for it. So thank you very much for watching. Have a great night. Bye-bye.